heard, but there you go. So going live.
Going
Here you see people. Live to the world. This is it. It's happening this exact moment right now. We are beamed out, and whatever you say is perennial, meaning it's stuck forever. It's permanent. It's ingrained.
I'm just happy to see you again. It's been a while.
It has. Ladies and gentlemen,
boys and girls,
this is the one, the only Luke. Start. Luke was actually on Channel 4. He was in a massive TV show. He's been in movies. He worked on The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger. All that amazing stuff. And we actually have a separate channel.
We do.
That we've sort of knocked around for a few years and had some fun on. And it's not a big channel, but we have some great content that needs to go back up. But being that this is a movie channel, I thought I want to bring Luke in for this hot topic.
Go on.
The hottest topic's so hot.
Is it
it's
sizzling?
Scalding.
Scalding. It's not even sizzling. It's steaming.
Yes, exactly that. It's almost.
If I was to put my hand around it, what kind of damage would it do? How hot is
for
this?
For you, zero, because the masculine energy would just put it out. But the reason I wanted to bring you on for this topic, is because Luke here showed me. It's almost embarrassing to say it, but you showed me a movie called They Live. John Carpenter's They Live.
Can you believe this guy hadn't seen it?
I hadn't seen it.
I had to introduce this guy. And it wasn't even that long ago, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to make that very clear. Sorry to embarrass you a little bit more, but it wasn't that long ago. It's not like we were 15, okay? It was pretty recent. And I've been telling George about this film for ages and how mind-blowing it was and how much of it has come to fruition and how just spooky it is, how accurately spooky it is as a film. So if you haven't watched it, by the way, you have to check it out. But I'm sure if you're all film buffs watching this channel, I'm sure every single one of you've seen it and has an incredible insight in what you took from it. So yeah, I was really honoured actually to be able to share that film with George, because obviously with George, someone who's such an aficionado in an encyclopedia of movie madness, for me to have the opportunity to show him something, and not just a film, but hello, two people. Such a film. For me to be able to give him such an incredible...
We're talking about They Live. John Carpenter's They Live.
I introduced it to this guy.
And I'll explain why we're talking about it.
So this guy somehow had missed the boat. He had missed the They Live boat. Try to say that. And I had the honour of being able to showcase that film to him.
So here's the thing, right? So John Carpenter's They Live, right, is an awesome movie. But one of the reasons I want to discuss it is because it's super masculine. It's like hyper masculine cinema.
True.
It's really cool, and it's got a line in it, very famous, which you actually said to me, and I didn't know it was from the film, which is, "I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum."
That's right, baby. Still one of the best lines in cinema history, by the way.
Yeah,
so it's just a great line. It always cheers me up. Just to hear it cheers me up.
But I thought this is a topic worth discussing. Here we've lost them, but they'll be back. It's all right. They'll be back. They got busy days and busy lives. But
it was the line. They've literally just gone to chew some bubblegum and kick some out. You inspired them, George.
They couldn't stand the masculinity. No, too much testosterone. You need to go and get a big tall glass of estrogen and drink it in one go. But it's
a glass of soy milk, a glass of organic soy milk.
Yeah, but the topic of masculinity in cinema and in television, being that you are a particularly, like, you exercise every day, you got a kind of an 80s hero physique. You're in there with the
thank you.
The Schwarzenegger and Stallone camp, okay?
The Rambo camp.
Yeah, there's quite a popular meme or something that went around saying...
It's not very camp, though.
Heroes in my day, and it showed, like, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren and Schwarzenegger.
Oh, yeah. That was my era, man.
We're talking about 80s action stars at present. And then it said heroes today, and it showed, like, Robert Downey Jr. and all these guys who were, like, they ain't tanked.
I've seen this, yeah.
And this, to me, is a very, very significant topic, because cinema is so influential, right? Regardless of people who say it's just entertainment. And I want to make this very, very clear, right? Cinema is not just entertainment. I know film directors personally, right, who've said, it's wonderful that I get to make films. A friend of mine said this, but we're not saving lives. We're not doing heart surgery. This is just telling stories, and I absolutely beg to differ.
Mm.
Cinema, it can save lives. It can change the trajectories of people's lives. It can make you
100%.
aspire to things. It could, like, look at how Bruce Lee affected you.
I was literally just about to say that. If I hadn't have seen my first Bruce Lee film, I don't think I would be the man that I am today. Like, I honestly mean
I am today.
Honestly, that guy was just, he was so charismatic. He was so electric. When seeing that man on screen, it was like watching some sort of titan, some sort of demigod. He was a mythical character. And then to hear later that he passed away in mysterious circumstances, and it became even more legendary, and his energy, his influence had even more of an impact on me. And then hearing that his movies had been, pirated and they've been edited, and all these specific scenes have been taken out of the movie. Yeah, and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, who is this man? Where's he from? And as someone with some Asian ancestry as well, to see this Chinese fella on screen being the hero, being the star, in a Hollywood movie, Enter the Dragon was the first one I saw, was incredibly inspiring. Absolutely, brother. So yeah, I agree with you. Films can have such a huge influence on a young man, on a young woman, on someone's life.
That's what I want to talk about. Just because when people say it's only cinema, it's only a story, compare Bruce Lee and Schwarzenegger and Stallone to today.
Yeah.
And think about what a young boy of 10 years old or 12 years old sees when he goes to the cinema and he sees the actor playing Spider-Man today.
Sure.
Or whoever, just like, what kind of teachers essentially is he getting when he looks at these people who are all pretending? And this is, I think, a very significant topic, because it is a significant topic, because acting is pretending, right? But Schwarzenegger wasn't pretending to be fit and healthy.
No way.
And Stallone wasn't pretending to be fit and healthy. He might have been pretending to be a boxer in Rocky 1 to 5. Or 1 to 6.
But he still trained. He still developed he honed himself.
He wasn't faking being in good shape.
No.
He wasn't faking that.
No.
And yet today, it really is much more on the side of it's a big facade. Okay? And
yeah, I mean, they wear those costumes as well. Like, you see all those Marvel films, right? They wear all these costumes. So a lot of the time it's all fake anyway. Like, they've got all this fake armor on top of them. They're not actually, like, you watch a Rambo, you watch a Predator, man, they're chiseled, man. They're like pure raw machismo, baby. Like, you just want to, I don't know about you, brother, but just thinking about it now, it makes me want to.
Two straight men here, but.
Do you know what I mean, though? They're just real.
It just makes me want to rip those clothes right off.
But they're not wearing any, but it just gives you a boost. Like, it's just beautiful, it's powerful, it's energetic,
it is.
It's alive.
No, it is. And it's amazing how energy can transfer through a screen, because not only does it happen in real, like with real actors, it happens with animation. It's very, very well known for anyone who's watched Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. And you can Google this, right? You can find fans of that show. Akira Toriyama's Dragon Ball Z especially has influenced so many young men to become like gym members, train every single day, get into amazing physical shape. And it happened with me watching Dragon Ball Z when I was a teenager. Was like, oh my God, I better wake up early and I better go for a run and I better get around the block and I better start lifting weights. And
what happened?
And these are just, yeah, exactly. and this is just cartoon characters, right? I mean, animated, they are not real, but the force behind it, the guy who drew it, gets into the audience. And nowadays we have an attack on, we're talking about essentially attacks on masculinity. They're commenting, but I can't read it. People are saying stuff, live chat, all messages are visible. Why can't I see what you guys are saying? It's really annoying.
It just sort of flicked up on the screen and then it disappeared, didn't it?
Top chat. This is the top chat. We're having the top chat. We're top. All right, we'll get to your comments in a bit. It is a bit annoying.
If we can see them, we will 100% respond. And I appreciate any person out there who has taken the time to write something to us, regardless of whether it's, warm and friendly or not. We're just sending out our vibes. So, we appreciate anything and we send you love.
I'd love to know what they're saying because I can actually respond to it. But anyway, nowadays, it's very, very easy to kind of watch movies and be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is entertaining, blah blah, and superheroes are obviously the biggest thing. And let's be fair, we have a whole
Well, we do have a whole myriad of superheroes behind us.
yeah,
But
the Marvel Action Hour right here
But do you not think though,
behind the couch.
when you look into the origin story of these characters behind us, it can be very inspiring to people. I just think now when you watch a film, it's also instantaneous. Like for example, you watch a film now. I'll give you a very good example of this, brother. And the Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and the idea that the main character, what was her name?
Right.
Yeah, she just kind of received all of her gifts.
Yeah.
It was very instantaneous. Whereas growing up, my name's Luke, right? So growing up, I think partly the reason why is because of the Star Wars series. I think my older brother was influenced by that, and he kind of pushed that for me to be called Luke. And I remember,
your brother pushed you to be called Luke because of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Wow.
True story. Yeah. And I think
the real Luke Skywalker right here.
I think genuinely that was one of the key reasons why I have this name. And I remember watching those movies as a kid, and his journey, right, was that he had to fucking struggle. Excuse the language, ladies and gents. He had to battle. He had to find the force within himself. He had to fall down so many times. He had to build himself up in order to get physically, mentally, and spiritually stronger in order to grow and evolve as a human being, as a Jedi. And that is the story that inspired me, right, on my journey in the things that I do in my life to understand it's okay to fall down, it's okay to lose, to fail, as long as you're willing to build yourself back up again and grow and take in what you need to learn from the experience. Whereas you watch stuff today and it's all very instantaneous. Everything's easy. People get what they want and then they move on. And it's like there's no arc, there's no journey, there's no battle, there's no war within and without.
In The Force Awakens, Rey is essentially like she can just do anything immediately. And the gifts are all given to her, and then in The Last Jedi he did change that a bit, although the fans tended not to like that film too much. But how do we feel it affects young people, especially young men, to see the state of men and don't get me wrong, I am such like I am an optimist when it comes to cinema. I absolutely tell people all the time
Go to the cinema. You love it.
Many great films.
This guy loves it. Every week he'll be like, bro, I've just went to watch the cinema. I've gone to the film. I found this little film that no one's watching. It's amazing, and this film's incredible, and you should check this film out. And all the rest of it. And if you're having a bad day and you're feeling sad, you might be go out, go and watch a film, go to the cinema, go to your local cinema, get yourself in there, watch a screening or something, get your mind outside of your mind. You know what I mean? And get inspired, see something else, go into a new world. George is always all about that. He loves film, he loves cinema. He's a born creator, and he loves to welcome in other creative endeavors and to be inspired by them. So yeah, he's a lover.
Get your mind out of your mind.
Well,
that was a good line, isn't it? That should go into a movie. Get your mind out of your mind.
I'm painting that.
Let me just go off topic a bit and talk about that.
Yeah.
Because one of the absolute benefits of going to the cinema, and this is so true, okay, is that without something like that giant screen, all of us are living in our own head. Okay. So all the time, you can't really help it. You're thinking about your life. What do I have to do today? What did I do yesterday? Was that a bad idea? Is this a good idea? Should I speak to this person, that person? And it's all you. But the power of cinema and storytelling in general is cinema is empathy. Now, I've never heard anyone describe it like that, but cinema works predominantly because of empathy. So to explain that, if you see something as simple as a man in a movie and he's hanging onto a window ledge by his fingernails, or he's hanging onto the edge of a building, and he can fall at any moment and plunge to his death, right? The reason you're going, oh my god, like if it's done well,
to tense up, you might get a little bit of a cold sweat.
You might genuine fear.
Yeah, absolutely, bro.
But that's not you. You're not at risk. You're not gonna fall.
No.
Right? It's not even a real person. But the reason it works is because of empathy. So you're empathizing with that person's feelings and whatever they're going through.
Yeah.
And the point is when you go into the movie, it doesn't have to be hanging off a ledge, but that character is going through something. And as soon as you get through those doors and like the curtain goes up and you sit in your seat, for an hour and a half, you are worrying about someone else's troubles. You're thinking about their day or their week or their year, what they have to go through, what they have to overcome. And even though there's a degree of like, usually, because generally characters in stories have some kind of problems to overcome. That's pretty common.
Yeah.
It's still a break from your own.
Sure.
And it heightens your empathy, and also it makes you sort of realize, oh, the world is bigger than me. Maybe my problems are not that significant. Maybe there's a bigger world out there, and there are other people to worry about. And to me, obviously, it's a very creative thing as well, because I'm thinking about how it's made and how it's written and all that sort of stuff. But these things, get your mind out of your mind, is so true, and it's one of the reasons I tell people to go to the cinema all the time. Anyway, on that note,
go on.
I am somebody who tells people go to the cinema, right? You should go to the cinema. You should watch these movies. There are lots of good movies. But I do often have a lot of criticism of mainstream movies. Now, the kind of stuff we were just talking about in the 80s were all mainstream. Even They Live. It might not have been a giant hit, but John Carpenter was still a mainstream director, okay? But those stars, Arnie, Stallone, whatever, these were guys in massive
they were megastars.
mainstream movies. So when you compare the mainstream then to the mainstream now, there's definitely something to be said for the fact that actors are being hired to kind of fake their way through everything, including faking their way through being heroic. Now, I talked about this. I did a review of the Marvels last week.
Oh, you did?
And I was kind of offended by the fact that the girl who plays Miss Marvel, she's this Indian girl, and she's clearly been put in to be like, look, we're diverse, we're multicultural, and blah. And I was like, that's fine. But here's the thing, right? There are so many, like, I don't want to say, obviously an Indian actress can be in anything. It doesn't have to be Bollywood. But there are so many Bollywood stars, female, who are super fit. And they work so hard, and they're professional
athletic
dancers.
And strong.
So athletic.
Yeah.
And then they bring in this girl who's overweight.
Right.
Visibly overweight. And as a result, I'm not saying she's not a good actress. I'm not saying she's not sweet. And she did work on camera. But, like, her face. But when she's fighting, I'm like, she's not going to win this fight. She's fighting an army. She can barely move. Like, she's too... who are you trying to fool, right? And I'm thinking... If an 8-year-old girl...
I haven't seen the movie. Does she not have powers?
Totally, she has powers.
So then, is that the whole point, that she can defeat anyone? It doesn't matter that she's physically...
But Superman has powers.
Yeah.
But look at him.
Exactly.
Spider-Man has
Glad
powers.
you said that.
But look at him. And to remove that,
yeah.
Even when you go like Iron Man, I'm talking about the comics. The Iron Man comics, okay, so he's got the intelligence to build his powers technologically. But he's still
jacked.
He's still jacked.
He still looks after himself.
So it still gives the audience, young people, something they can achieve.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like, well, I got bitten by a radioactive spider. It's like, okay, maybe I can't do that.
Sure.
But I can do the other bit.
I could learn gymnastics or, do parkour, free running.
Bruce Lee said in that one famous interview, the black and white interview, he said, look, we set a lot of our films in the past because it's a pre-military, like pre-gun time. He said nowadays, you go like this, someone just pulls out a gun, and what are you going to do, right? But he says, so we set it in the past, so that there is a lot of hand-to-hand combat, and it's perhaps a bit more believable that no one pulls out a more significant weapon. But he did that knowingly. I'm just trying to say, like, you could look at Bruce Lee and just be like, well, okay, maybe it would be difficult for one man to take out an entire army. Maybe nowadays, if you tried that, you'd get murked, right? With someone pulling out a machine gun. Obviously. But I can still aspire to that, man. Yeah. I can still learn whatever he's learned to put him in that physical condition, right? And therefore, it's extremely powerful as a young person to see these people and think, holy crap. Like,
absolutely.
I mean, this is a really simple example, but I think it's so important, is Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future 1 and 2 specifically, right?
I was waiting for him to come up.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I expected you to bring him up.
Yeah, go on then, because I'm surprised that you thought that.
Yeah, no, I did, because he's a character who, he's not like the biggest, strongest, toughest guy in the world, but he's the character of Marty McFly. But he's fucking cool. Like, he's really fucking cool for a start. And he's super authentic. He's super authentic. Like, he's proper. He's really, like, real. Like, his character, his heart is in the right place. like he's always trying to do the right thing.
Mm.
He's always aspiring to do better and to make the world better, the world that he's living in, and to help his family and help his friends and do the right thing. And it's a character that you can watch in those films, and it's very, very inspiring. I remember watching those movies and thinking like I wanted to go out on a skateboard. You know? I wanted to hang out and the diner or whatever. I wanted to make a difference, a positive difference in people's lives, because he was a character who wasn't built with like the best. He hasn't got all the gifts necessarily that you'd see like a superhero have. Do you know what I mean? Or he hasn't got it all together.
He is confident.
But he's confident, and he owns who he is, and it's really, really charismatic. That's what in my eyes, that's what charisma is. It's when you own who you are, and you're confident in who you are, and you're willing to sit in your presence and be yourself instead of trying to jump around and be someone else and prove to someone else that you're good enough and be cool enough. Just be you, man.
But here's the thing with Michael J. Fox that I just want to add is he was actually physically very fit.
Okay.
He was very like quick. He was super speedy. His movement.
No, he was sick. He was sick in that, bro.
But think about
sick in that. Don't get me wrong.
In Back to the Future 2.
But like you look at other characters like Biff, he's a big guy, he's a big strong guy. Like
you know
what I mean?
totally.
But he uses his tools to his best.
I get
ability.
your point.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like if you think of when he confronts Biff in Back to the Future 2.
Yep.
Right. He goes, the answer is no, Griff. Or is he Griff? Right.
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox, he jumped over the counter in the 80s cafe 80s, right? And he does a maneuver that as a kid, I thought that's kind of just a standard thing that I guess you can do when you get a bit older. Right? And he puts one hand on the counter and his whole body sort of twists so his legs go this way.
Yeah, that's a part.
And he gets over the
That's
over
a
the
parkour
counter.
technique, actually. I've learned that through doing parkour training.
Fucking different. Like Jackie Chan does it and Michael J. Fox does it, and it's not like a focal point of the story.
Sure.
It's not like we're going to go, he has to learn how to do this. It's part of the story like the Karate Kid. And
Sure.
with training, he can know how to do it. It's just something he does. And there are lots of little things that he does, like skidding over the top of a car and things like that. That would take a certain amount of training, but he just does it as a kind of cool addition to the story or the movie. And those things, if you actually try them, are really hard.
Yeah.
So actually, that's really hard. And what's funny is you'll see a whole superhero movie where in real life, when it comes to like the actor doing a little stunt or whatever, they do less than that. He's not playing a superhero.
No.
He's just playing a teenager. But he does something that's really difficult if you actually try to do it. And these guys do stuff where you go, what can I glean? If you see a giant CGI kind of martial arts thing, it's kind of hard to even go, I'm going to go and practice that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and try that. It's like, well, you can't.
It's too outlandish. It's too unreal. It's not on this planet. Like you watch some of those Avengers films, and it's almost like watching a video game. It's not even a film at a certain point. It's just become a video game. Like don't get me wrong, it's spectacular and amazing visually. It's stunning to see all these aliens and spaceships and the war and all that. It's incredible. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it per se, but it's very difficult to go, yeah, that's inspiring. I'm gonna
try that.
I'm gonna try that.
The Rocky 1 is a pretty good example because Rocky, the thing that is like the changeover in his life is when he wakes up early and he's like, okay, I've got a huge road ahead of me, so he'll use the actual road, and he gets up and he drinks those eggs, right, raw eggs, and then he goes for a run and he runs around the block, and then famously he runs up the top of the stairs, right, the steps. But one of my favorite scenes in that film is the way he runs around. He does this huge, it's probably like a 5-10 mile run, okay, and then he gets back home, and he closes his front door, and he stands there, and then you can see in his mind he's like, screw it, and he goes back outside and he starts it again. And little things like that are really, really inspiring, because if you've ever like gone for a run, I could do it again. You know when you do reps or whatever, I could do a second one. I could stop now, but I could do a second one. And when you see a guy like Stallone and he looks like Stallone, and you're like, well, he looks like that. Maybe I should be like him. I'll go and do that second run. And I mean, I want to talk a bit about the kind of war on masculinity.
Well, bro, I was going to bring that. It's so funny you just said that because I was literally just about to say, you'll find videos online now where people will almost be criticizing, like saying like there's something wrong with you if you are into self improvement. Like if you're into exercise, for example, if you're into training, if you're into honing your body and having a healthy body. I'm not talking necessarily becoming a fucking bodybuilder or anything, but I just mean just being healthy. Just going to the gym.
Oh my god,
running.
it happens all the time,
Bro. People get criticized for this now.
In every conceivable manner, just to like something. And let's be fair, because I say you have to take it on board. Like people will say, oh, you shouldn't be into that, and oh, that's toxic.
How is it toxic to look after yourself and to be healthy? That
is toxic. That's if somebody says it's toxic, that's toxic. Do you know what I mean? It's like if I said to a little girl, it's toxic to be a girl.
Then it suddenly becomes toxic.
No, I'm saying me saying it is toxic.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, okay.
As soon as someone says it's toxic, the toxicity is coming from there.
Sure.
I mean, it's a shoot. I don't even want to talk about it because.
Well, I was on a reality TV show, ladies and gentlemen, and there was a line that I said because we were struggling.
This is a massive reality show. He was on Monday nights, 9 p.m.
and
Monday nights, 9 p.m. Channel 4, watched by probably 1.5 to 2 million people a week. So this is not like, I was on a little reality. Like, this is, first-hand stuff.
And me and two other men particularly bonded on the journey. It was we were thrust into the wilderness, and we had to resist taking.
Thrust. There's a masculine sentence. We were thrusting, all three of us.
And we had to resist taking temptations, and we there was a lot of camaraderie between us, and we were trying to build each other up. And the camera, the woman, the camera lady kept sticking the camera in my face, and I knew she was looking for something like a little soundbite, a little something. And I basically was, I was very much in the trip, in the experience, and I was tripping out a little bit because also I was hungry, I was starving, and I was trying to motivate myself to remain steadfast and strong and to resist taking temptations. And I said something along the lines of, we, the three men, the three kings, are here to ascend, not descend. Yeah, we are here to spiritually empower ourselves and become bigger, stronger, more enlivened human beings. We're here to fucking go on a journey and to grow and improve and better ourselves. That's what we're here for as human beings. I said something along those lines, and obviously they cut it up a bit, but for the most part they put a good chunk of that, a good sizable chunk of that in the TV show. And as soon as that came out, I had this diatribe of diarrhea, right? I'd call it diarrhea. Verbal diarrhea on Twitter with all these so-called feminists, so-called equal rights people telling me that toxic masculinity, how this disgusting, you're going out, you're talking about this on television, and I was just like, all I did was say, as three men, we're trying to rise up, we're trying to grow, we're trying to evolve, we're trying to be better than who we are, we're trying to be better. I didn't say anything about anyone else. I wasn't shitting on anybody. All I was trying to do was build us three up as a group. Meanwhile, the other people in the show were taking temptations left, right, and center. And same on Twitter, they were being praised, oh, do what's best for you, love. Take the easy life, take the easy route. Don't hurt yourself. You be kind to yourself.
Cheer yourself up.
Have another chocolate. It's fine.
Into the world,
do you know what I mean? And it's like, hang on a minute. The show is about resisting temptations. And I'm actually doing it. I'm resisting temptations, and I'm trying to build up my brothers in this situation to grow and to evolve and get stronger, to ascend, not descend. And I'm being criticized, whereas the people who are just literally giving in with no willpower whatsoever are being praised and endorsed and celebrated, George.
But the funny thing is when it comes to the internet, that those who comment...
Absolutely, because I've also met people, like, just in real life, who come up to me and said, you were fucking amazing. I wish I'd seen more of you. I could tell you were very strong. It's a shame they cut your line short. They didn't give you more of an opportunity to express who you were and who you are. And I rate you so much for not taking temptation. So I know there are people in the world, like real people, who don't spend their life on the internet, on Twitter, who I did affect.
Luke did an absolutely amazing interview And
Thank you.
he did it to talk about what it was like to be on a reality TV show and all the ways in which his most authentic self, let's say, was edited, and how the message was skewed, and it's such a phenomenal insight, and it's so articulate, and it's so on the nose, and so interesting about how it actually is to be on both sides of this unbelievable experience where you're essentially just doing what you're supposed to do. You don't know how it's going to be edited, and then how what you've done is suddenly seen by like 2 million people, but it's edited completely out of your hands, and how they can completely change who you are and skew your words and put them out of context and things. And it's a brilliant interview, and I'll link it under the video. It's honestly like it's very, very informative. Anyone who's got any interest in reality TV, or even just how things get made, it's really a fascinating interview, especially because of how you did so many significant things that all could have been shown.
Absolutely.
And it asks, there's a big question mark hanging over, why would they not want the audience to see that? Why would they not want the audience to be empowered? Well, it's like the scene in Rocky, and them going, we're going to cut that bit. When he decides to go back out, we don't want people to see that he actually did that. We'd rather just make out that he had the eggs, went outside, changed his mind, and went back to sleep. We're going to show that instead, because then everyone's going to feel okay about themselves, and they won't have to kind of work harder. And it's a weird one, but I can't recommend that interview enough. It's so brilliant. And it ain't gonna make it to TV.
No, and that's the thing, and that's why it's interesting that you did bring up the idea of this sort of war on masculinity, because I think it's really important that there are these voices out there which are speaking on masculinity as something that is sacred and is divine and is beautiful and should be expressed. And if you want to, whatever it might be, if you want to do martial arts or go to the gym or whatever it is, it doesn't even matter. Like,
even if you're a woman,
absolutely, it doesn't.
I'm not saying the girl in the Marvels is a girl, but I was like, even young girls want to see someone who they can look up to and aspire to. I'm just kind of, but this is an important point, right? Because I've taught dance on and off, right? I was asked to teach it and assistant teacher and stuff, and I said a long time ago, one of the ways that young children are taught dance is nuts. It's crazy because, and I'm talking about, this could be jazz, contemporary, ballet, modern, whatever, right? Parents take their children to these schools and go, oh, doesn't she look cute? Oh, she's 3 years old. Oh, she's so sweet. She's going to be in a dance class. And that's fine. That's great. There's usually things that they can learn at that age. But they never show the children what the children are learning. Point being, you can take a little girl to a ballet class, but the girl's never seen ballet. Never seen it. So they don't even know what they're doing. They don't have any idea why they're being taught to stand a certain way or move a certain way. They don't actually know. And they might be in a bunch of ballet classes for like 2, 3, 4 years and they've never seen a professional ballet dancer. They've never seen a ballet. They don't know. And it's exactly the same thing as going, we're going to take you to a martial arts class, but you've never seen martial arts. Or we're going to take you to a guitar lesson, but you've never heard anyone play guitar. You've never heard a song. You have no interest in rock and roll. You've got no interest in folk music. You've never heard it. So why would you have any interest in learning to play it? And to steal a famous Gandhi quote, which is a great quote, he said, education is not filling a bucket, but lighting a fire. I.e., if you inspire someone, they will learn for themselves.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the reason I mention it is because if you have a bunch of heroes, but they're not actually physically strong, and they're not actually particularly adept at anything, and it's quite visible, then you have a problem, because it's the audience, if they can see that person who's exceptionally skilled or just exceptionally, worked out or whatever, the kids will see it and say, oh, now I want to learn. Now I want to get good at it. Now I can see, Bruce Lee's a good example, Jackie Chan's a good example. And women can look at genuine, like, extraordinary women who could do like gymnastics and somersaults and all that kind of stuff. And if they see it, then it's like, oh my God, I can do that? Is that what the human body is capable of? I can do that. I can do all those somersaults and things. If they see it, then it's like, wow, I better wake up earlier and start working harder. And I always say this because it's so true, is it's good for society and it's good for the individual. Because if that person is really taking care of themselves, let's say all men work out. And I don't mean to be this condescending to anyone who doesn't or can't find the time or feels unhealthy. But let's just say hypothetically that all men do. Number one, it releases a lot of endorphins. So it raises your state of mind. And number two, women will be like, oh wow, men are all more attractive. Suddenly all the men are looking pretty good. And it works exactly the same way the other way around. If all women go to the gym and all women take care of their body and their physique, and they all do their makeup and stuff, and they like to look pretty, all men will be like, wow, all these women are sexy. Oh my God, they're all looking good today, aren't they? Jesus Christ. And so where's the downside? Do you know, where is the downside? That means the individual feels better because they're getting an endorphin rush, and everyone around them is like, well, my day just got better because you just see the look at her. She looks great. And if you don't even put that on the big screen, where it's like, if everyone looks like that, then they're gonna. I know this is a controversial topic,
but
it's like,
great. But can I just say something, George? Sorry to cut you off, but it's about this. It's about this balance, right? Because on one hand, you should take pride in who you are, right? Like, you should love yourself to a certain extent, whereby if you're overweight or you're not in shape or whatever else, you shouldn't hate yourself. You shouldn't be like, I'm shit, I suck. You should.
Totally
no, I know you're not saying that, but what I'm saying is, it's finding that balance. Just because you accept yourself for who you are today, it doesn't mean you shouldn't aspire to be better tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we have to understand, right? Because you could be in an environment whereby you could meet your friend and your friend is overweight, and then this or the rest of it, or they're not in whatever, they're not doing what they need to be doing, and you still love them, and you still, I
don't care if someone's overweight.
Of course, I'm just using an example. But what I'm saying is, you would want to inspire them. You'd want to help motivate them. You'd want them to be better versions of themselves.
Well, let's just say, because this,
and you'd want them to want that too. Because you wouldn't want them to be like, I'm fine as I am. Everything's wonderful. I don't need to be better. Why don't I need to be better? I'm perfect. That's the thing, right? Because it's like, on one level we're all perfect, but on another level we're not. In the sense of, we can always grow and evolve. We're in this body. We're in this human body. God has given us this gift of life and this gift of free will. Right? That's what they say in the different biblical and the different religious texts. We have the gift of free will, George. This is what a gift that we have, right? So why wouldn't we choose? Why wouldn't we aspire in this life to be better?
Yeah. To
be the best that we can be? Do you know what I mean? Obviously, we have that divine spark within us. The moment we're born, we have that divine spark, that heavenly spark within us, because we are created from the Creator. So we have that divine spark within us. But does that not mean that we want to create ourselves? Does that not mean we want to inspire others by being the best version that we can be, George?
You would think.
Whereas you watch these things, no, exactly. You watch a lot of the stuff that you see today is very much of the philosophy of, you're perfect as you are. Yeah. Just as it was in my reality TV show. Oh, you're great. You don't need to resist temptations. You don't need to try and evolve and grow. Just take the fucking treat. Because guess what? You're great. Everything's wonderful. Why do we need willpower? Why do we need strength and character?
You don't even need to work hard.
You don't even need to work hard. It should just be handed to you on a plate.
The French have this
literally.
I read a book called What French Women Know.
Wow, okay.
I really like that book. It's a very easy to read. They know all kinds of things. But it was written by an American woman who went to live in France. And she married a French man. Okay. So you look unusual on camera at that angle. It's like suddenly head disappeared. But so she marries a French man, and she gets brought into the French culture. And I believe she came from New York. I could be off. But one thing she talks about is, she said the French surprised her on many levels. And one of them was, if like a French girl has gone on holiday, like in her 20s, right? And she comes back and she's put on weight. She said everyone in the family and all the friends just quickly say to her, you put on weight. And she said, as an American, it was like, oh my God, what do you say? You can't say that to her. Like, why are you being so rude?
It's interesting.
But she said she learned that to them, it wasn't rude at all. The whole point was, we are telling her what she needs to know to make sure that her standard of life goes up, and she quickly fixes that before it becomes a legitimate problem.
Sure.
And the woman said, even though it was uncomfortable in her eyes to say it, she said, reflecting upon her time growing up in America, there were many instances she could think of with people where no one had said to them, you know what, you might want to hang off on those pork pies today.
Yeah.
And because no one said anything, the quality of that person's life diminished.
Piece by piece.
And then the hospital bills came in and all this sort of stuff. So she's like, there is an element of, in order to help, you have to not necessarily hurt, but like a child, you have to sometimes say no, and you have to be a bit of a disciplinarian when you don't always want to say it. You always want to say the nice thing, but sometimes you have to.
And of course, it's the way you say things as well, right? It's the way you do things. Like if it's really interesting you bring that up, because I have a female friend, and she posted actually online. She was like, and she like did a little dance, and she had some music on it, and she was like, how I feel when I've just gone over to see my auntie, and she said I put on weight, and she did this little dance or whatever, and you could tell she was upset. She was and she was making fun of it. She was mocking the situation, right? And I remember watching it, and I was thinking, I felt like, okay, but you've put this on your Instagram, so on one level, it couldn't have hit that deep. You're putting it out into the world. You've also made a laugh and joke about it, which I think is beautiful.
It can hit that deep.
No, it can.
Because sometimes creativity of any kind is birthed predominantly from, it's like there's a dagger in me, how do I take it out? And I'll use it as fuel to do something productive with it.
That's true.
It might have really
upset her, possibly.
But that doesn't mean it didn't do her good.
Yeah.
And the fact that she was dancing and going, all right, I'm gonna use this energy and put something into the world is a sign that it's good. I mean,
listen, I've had people say things to me, like family, close friends, or whatever, and I've always, I'm a very sensitive guy. I would have taken it on board, but on some level, it might have motivated me on another level. You know what I mean? To be a better version of myself. So it really depends where it's coming from as well. It depends where it's coming from. If it's from a place of someone actually trying to worry about you. Like if you came over to see me today, brother, and you were like, looking bad and in bad shape, I wouldn't be like, oh, you look terrible. But I would be like, are you feeling all right?
You could do better.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Do you need, what's been going on? Do you know what I mean? I'd be like, what's going on? And then you might explain to me, well, I've had a really tough month. I haven't been eating right because I've had a lot of stress. And then I say, okay, man, well, let's talk about that. What can we do to get you back on track? And I think there are ways of doing it, whereas I think sometimes with family, especially old-fashioned members of family, they can be quite cutting. When they kind of just say, "Oh, you look like shit," basically. Do you know what I mean? They can be a little bit cutting, and I do think there are ways to do things.
Parents, especially.
Yeah, and I do think it's probably, there are ways in which you can go about in trying to help someone, right? You don't necessarily have to be so incisive.
But this is why I think one of the reasons cinema can be so influential is that messages, I think everybody knows this. Like oftentimes we don't really like somebody to say, I'm going to teach you something, or I'm going to tell you something about you, or blah. But when you watch a story, that alone can be like, it's that saying, it's not the message, but the messenger. So sometimes a film is a messenger of some kind of truth and meaning. Not always, it can just be entertainment, but it can also be like, it can teach you the thing you need to hear at that present moment. And in that regard, you watch a movie with Hulk Hogan and Sylvester Stallone in Rocky 3, and just seeing it can make you go, do you know what? Maybe I should do some press-ups, right? And I'm not saying this as somebody who's like, I'm not no athlete and whatever, I'm not. But what I'm interested in is the way in which it's been largely eradicated and stigmatized. So just as a viewer, I don't like the fact that it's like, you shouldn't have it in films, and as someone who kind of loves the hero genre, right? Going back to like Die Hard, I consider is kind of like part of that. Comparing that to kind of the modern superhero movie, I'm like, okay, this is losing me now, because it's so artificial. Like the artificiality is unbelievable. That the people in the costumes are not even in shape.
I remember watching, Batman Begins. Yeah. And he's in his house, and I think the butler, Michael Caine, is playing Alfred, and he comes in, and he's all bruised up. Batman, aka
Christian Bale.
is all bruised up from the night before, doing whatever he's doing, and he literally comes out of bed and he just falls forward. Remember this? He just falls forward into a push up, and he just starts doing push ups, and it's a wicked scene because it's just like the first fucking thing he does when he wakes up in the morning is just start working out.
That's so true. I remember seeing this is a good example you mentioned. Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I love that show, man. I can hear the soundtrack now, man, just by you saying it.
Yeah. So Buffy,
such a good show.
Season
so good.
4, Sarah Michelle Gellar's character is dating a guy.
Soldier.
His
The
soldier
guy. That soldier guy.
And I can't
That
remember
clean
his
cut
name.
soldier guy with the blonde hair.
Yeah.
That super clean cut, like perfect soldier guy. I remember the guy. I can't remember his name, but Brody. I don't know why I think Brody. Just
Riley or something.
Maybe Riley.
But he
Probably
either way.
Something very American like that.
I completely forgot about this until you mentioned it. But as a kid, Sarah Michelle Gellar in Buffy the Vampire Slayer was like so sexy.
Woo!
I was like, oh my god, she's so sexy. Like.
Yeah, she was a lot. I think it's also because of the time you were as well in your life.
Yeah, totally.
It wasn't just her, but it was where you were, where I was.
This is weird how the brain is, man.
Yeah.
I remember walking down a high street with a couple of friends, right? And across the road,
Don't tell me she was there.
No, I'm talking heavy traffic, right? Cars zipping by on both lanes. So all the way across the road and into a shop across the street, and on a shelf there was a FHM For Him magazine, and Sarah Michelle Gellar was on the cover. And somehow my eye was so trained to spot this like Sarah Michelle Gellar, because she was like once a week. Oh my god, she's so sexy. I fucking saw this magazine.
From like across the...
Yeah, and I remember I was with her. I was like, Sarah Michelle Gellar's on FHM. And they're like, no, she's not. No, she is. I can see it. And they're like, how can you see it through? I was like, I don't know.
You had a radar, man.
And we were all like, oh, look at that. But anyway, the point is this. She's going out with this guy. And as a young person who's like trying to find their way, and it's like, what do girls like? And what are they interested in? She's going out with him. Okay, he's her boyfriend. Why does she like him? In an episode, he gets out of bed, and I think he's in her dorm or something, and he gets out of bed, and the first thing he does is he just rolls onto the floor and he starts doing press-ups.
That's right.
And she's like, I think she says, what are you doing? And he's like, it's the best way to start the day.
Boom.
And I think he does like 20 or 40 press-ups, like as a quick kind of
just beginning. A little burst.
And
wake up.
I think I did that because of that, just that episode. I probably did that for like 6 months, just because of that one scene. And I was like, hey, okay, all right, that's a good way to start the day. Now maybe if somebody had told me to do that, maybe if my dad had said, you know what you should do in the morning, I might not have listened to him. I might have been like, no. But because it came through the TV,
and he was dating Sarah, and he was dating Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
He was dating Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I was like, okay,
get anyone motivated.
I'll get up in the morning and I'll do that. And that there was nothing unhealthy about that. It certainly wasn't toxic. There was nothing in that.
No, definitely not.
That detrimented me. So why isn't there more of it? I mean,
why is it gone? Why is it going?
It hasn't completely gone, right? I do emphasize there are smaller films, but the mainstream stuff.
Do you think it's because they always want us to just basically become AI dependent, fucking plug him in, plug him out, robot type individuals that just, spend all our time, inside houses and buildings, looking at screens, never actually going out into the world, never actually connecting with nature, never actually looking someone in the eye and connecting with a real human being and living an actual life outside of this matrix that we're creating for ourselves? Do you think that could be part of it?
If it's engineered to an extent, maybe. But the thing is, there's an interview with Steve Jobs.
Oh yeah.
Which is a really powerful interview, and it's kind of early-ish Steve Jobs. It's not towards the end of his life, pre like iPod, and he talked about the belief in a great global conspiracy and people essentially pulling the strings, and he said that to his mind, that was a kind of optimistic view, that essentially it's almost like the parent who has a plan for the family.
Right.
And maybe they're not telling you it, but they have a plan. And he's like, that's an optimistic view. And he said a much scarier view is that things go a certain way because people, the public, actually want them to go that way. The point being that he'd essentially be like, the reason the movies have gone that way is because that's what people, their purchasing power is what dictates it. They're paying to see those movies. So as a result, they've gone that way. In advertising, if you show someone in a Gillette commercial
The best
exercising and chucking javelins and all that stuff, if you show that, the theory would be it actually sells worse than if you show somebody who's just a completely normal person.
Your average bloke.
Your average bloke. So what Steve Jobs was saying is much scarier, what he called the truth, that they just do that stuff because that is actually what the people are after, as opposed to a great conspiracy. So you can see it either way, but what I would say to kind of rebut that is that might well be absolutely the truth, but what people want is almost never what's best for them. So it's a responsibility of the artist and the writer and the filmmaker to give people what's best for them, as opposed to what people comfortably want.
Yeah.
You know this, having been on a TV show that was all about temptation, and the whole point in terms of like enriching your soul was, well, I might want a cookie.
Sure.
But how do I feel after I eat it? Well, I've lost everything I set out to do, and I've lost the sense of belief in myself.
Yeah.
And that is Alan Moore talked about that, right? A lot. He said the public, you can't give them what they want because they don't know what they need. So you have to give them what they need, not what they want. They'll usually reject what they need until sometime later. But he's like, the mainstream works specifically to go, what do people want? Give them that, because then we make more money. And if that is, well, then everyone can say masculinity is toxic, and they can have no real heroes, and then
I mean, you look at you look at something like, it wasn't that long ago, 20 years ago, Lord of the Rings, right? The Peter Jackson movies.
Yeah.
And you know, Aragorn, yeah? Viggo Mortensen, right, played Aragorn. He was the epitome to me of divine masculinity, right? Because he was a leader. Divine masculinity. What
sounds like a ladies like cosmetic commercial.
Because
divine.
Because he was on
from divinity. It's just messages, but they're not these messages.
All right, fair. But what I was going to say was, with Aragorn, he was on this journey with his people, right? With the different characters in this incredible story, and he was guiding them. He was building them up. He was leading them into the unknown, right? And he didn't have all the answers. He was also torn stricken with grief and concern and self-doubt, and there was all this stuff going on. But he had his mission. Remember, he had his mission. He knew what he had to do. He had his path, his journey, and he was going to stay strong, not just for himself, but for his people. He understood there was a bigger picture, and that gave him, George, the courage, right? The courage. It doesn't mean that he didn't doubt himself. It didn't mean that there was days where he was like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I've got the strength to do this. But because he knew he had a purpose, and he knew he had a greater cause, a greater belief in something that he wanted to achieve, it gave him the courage, right? The fortitude to keep going, right? And that is something that is incredibly, as a man, especially to all the men potentially watching, I think that's incredibly inspiring to receive that kind of energy, because you as a man watching this, you want to believe in something bigger than just the individual. And the problem is, when you watch things today, especially, you know, the films today, it's all about the individual. It's all about the self. And it's not about the collective. It's not about the group. It's not about helping other people as well as helping yourself. But when you've got a deeper purpose and you're on a deeper journey, that will give you the courage to do better, right? Does that make sense? Have I lost you, or does that make sense?
No, it's perfect sense. It's. I mean, I do think that
because when I was in that show, just to say, sorry, George, sorry to go. When I was in that show, there were moments, of course, when I wanted to give in to temptations. But I had a deeper purpose every day, especially as I got later into the show. I was starving, guys. I was absolutely starving. I was tripping because I was so hungry. My body was so light. My brain was real. But I had a deeper purpose, and that kept me on the path. That kept me on the journey. If you don't stand for anything, right, then you stand for nothing. If you don't stand for anything, then you stand for nothing. If you stand for nothing, then you're very easy to be easily manipulated. You're very easily led,
misled,
and you become a sheep. And then the media tell you what to do. The media tell you what you like. The media tell you how to behave.
Well, this is. I think we should answer because you got another thing
Yeah,
to do in
sure,
it.
no worries.
But the
Carry on.
the thing with the
Yeah, it's
media,
fine. Got a few minutes.
which is pretty I suppose worrying, is that I can simplify it into a very simple thing, which is this: you don't see adverts on the television for exercise, right? You will see adverts saying, "Are you depressed? Well, try this pill, try this pill, try this pill, come and see this therapist," all things that you have to hand over money for. But they won't say, if you just go and jog around the block, it's going to release endorphins, it's going to get your blood pressure going, it's going to increase your heart rate, it's going to make you feel better.
Yeah.
All facts, right, will make you feel better, guaranteed. You don't see that ad because to buy advertising space is expensive, and who's going to benefit from that TV commercial? Now, you might get an individual lone, like, personal trainer on the internet or something, but in terms of mainstream advertising, you're not going to get that to say this will actually make you feel better. So even then, it doesn't mean it's a conspiracy. It just means it's part of the monetary system. They're not going to say to you, oh, you're not feeling very good? Maybe eat more fruits and vegetables. That won't be a TV commercial because who's going to profit? Unless it's a very specific brand, which it never is, right? They don't go, eat more bananas, right? Get more potassium in it. You won't see that ad. Because,
just for the benefit of you. We just want to benefit you. There's no other ulterior motive. If
a company could patent the banana,
sure.
If Coca-Cola were like, we've bought bananas, that's it. We own the bananas. You can be damn sure you start seeing banana ads all over the place. But you won't see it because no one's profiting.
Sure.
So as a result, you have to think, well, what is it that you're being advertised from all the time? Well, it's the stuff that doesn't sell by itself, generally. It's like, okay, well, we have to put it in their face because they're not going to buy it otherwise.
Sure.
And then you have a huge imbalance where it's. But either way, like the power and the influence of film, I want to say two things, which is just that film can enrich people's lives. It can save lives. It can.
Absolutely, brother.
And to assume it can't and is just entertainment is false.
And on a slightly different subject, just a slight turn. Also, some of the greatest memories I've ever had are watching movies with my loved ones, certain loved ones. I remember going to watch Gladiator with my father, and I'll never forget it, man. Like, my father's passed on now, but I've got that memory of watching that film in the cinema with my father, and I love that movie anyway. But watching it with my father, makes it even more special to me. Those are certain moments that you'll never forget. But if that film had sucked, like that film has lived through time. That's a classic.
That's a good point.
Well, do you know what I mean?
There are other films because it's a better film.
Absolutely. I've watched films with other people that weren't great, and whatever. I remember going to watch Black Panther with you, and it's like I'll remember it more because I watched it.
Black Panther wasn't great, do you?
Do you know what I mean? So
you're not allowed to say it wasn't great.
Yeah, that wasn't great. I'm gonna say it right here. Wasn't a great film.
Didn't understand the hype. Yeah, we left the cinema going, was Black Panther really? Is it? Does everyone really think this is a good film?
I always remember when the film finished. I remember looking around the auditorium and everyone was sort of looking at each other. Silent.
You saw it in the cinema, Black Panther, completely silent. Everyone was silent, and we thought everyone was silent because everyone was thinking, I don't think that was as good as everyone said it was.
I think that's what was happening. I 100% think everyone was going, am I allowed to say that wasn't great and that kind of sucked? But if I say that, am I going to offend someone? So shall I keep my mouth shut because he's... do you know what I mean?
I heard that Black Panther was... The studio wanted F. Gary Gray to direct it because they were specifically going, we want to find a black film director. And I was thinking, as soon as you do that, even though it's supposed to be anti-racist, it's kind of racist. Because you're like, no, it can't be Chinese, can't be Indian, can't be French, can't be white. It has to be black. So I was thinking, that kind of is racist. But okay, but either way, F. Gary Gray, who happens to be black, is certainly one of my favorite filmmakers. He made Friday, and he made The Negotiator,
Sick.
And he made the Fast and the Furious, I think 7. His one, whichever one he did, I love it. And it's the most, at the time, it was the most lucrative film ever made. So,
Whoa.
But it's funny because no one said, oh yeah, the most lucrative film ever made
is by a black director.
Yeah,
I've never heard that.
Just didn't care. But he couldn't make Black Panther because he was making the Fast and the Furious.
Right.
And
who did make Black Panther?
And the guy who made Black Panther, I saw his previous film. He made a true story about a guy who was killed on a public train, and I saw that film and I was like, oh my god, this is not a good film. And but it got a lot of talk because it was a true story, and they were like, oh, it's so meaningful and important. And then when I saw Black Panther, I was like, you can't give it to him. He's like straight out of university. He doesn't know how to do it yet. He's still learning. And yeah, I was unimpressed with that movie, and I was just sitting there with you thinking, God, imagine how good this would have been if F. Gary Gray had done it. Like, this would have been I hope they get him to do a superhero movie at some point, because he's such a good director. I'd love to see him just knock it out of the park. But either way, yeah, we came out of the cinema, and I remember you going like, it's kind of annoying that you're apparently not supposed to say that wasn't very good.
The fact is, it just wasn't a good movie.
But that's the media.
I mean,
that is the media saying you're supposed to say this is great because everyone else does, and it's like, well, that's the same as me. I mean,
no one's got any true opinions anymore because you're so heavily influenced by everything around you that you just. It's like these campaigns where people. I know we're going deep now, but it's like these campaigns where people jump on a campaign, but they don't even know what the campaign's about. But it's seen as like the right thing to do, right? So people will go, like they'll go to a protest or go and do this and go and do that. That's fine. Listen, if you want to go to the protest, that's fine. But at least know what you're protesting about. At least actually understand the situation and then make a conscious decision to join it because you genuinely feel that you want to be there in order to support whatever it is that's going on. But I think a lot of the time now, because I've met people, so many people, and you see so many on the internet where they just join these causes because it's seen as the trendy, cool thing to do, and they really don't have a true understanding of what's going on. They don't even fucking live that. They don't understand it. They're just going along for the ride, and so they can post on their social media and look at me. I'm such a moral, decent human being. It's bullshit. It's absolute fucking bullshit. Fucking grow a backbone, motherfuckers.
But I do think, like, when it comes to cinema, right? One thing that's amazing about cinema is it's a very difficult medium. Very difficult art form to make. There's a famous quote by Orson Welles where he said, "A poet needs a pen, a painter needs a brush, and a filmmaker needs an army." Right? And not always, but generally, especially back then, but generally, you have to pull a lot of people together to make a film. A lot of resources, a lot of time, often a lot of money, and it's really, really difficult. And because it's really difficult, you can't really be stupid and do it. Like, people who make films generally they're competent people.
Yeah.
And there's something very real about the fact that when something is very, very difficult, once somebody has achieved the ability to do it, they have a certain degree of intelligence no matter what, because they understand the difficulty of getting good at something. Sure. You can find someone who's an amazing sketcher or drawer, and you can be pretty sure that person is got a relatively high level of intelligence just because they've gone through something difficult to achieve a high level of skill. And as a result, you can watch a bunch of people on the internet talking like we are, and all they're doing is talking. So there isn't necessarily a great deal of skill involved. There can be, but there is no need for it. Sure. Whereas when you're watching a movie, generally the level of intelligence is quite high just among the filmmakers, just because it's like, how else are they going to pull it off? Yeah. They have to be socially with it because they have to deal with 250 people on the film set, and they have to be able to translate their ideas to those people and all that sort of stuff. So generally the caliber of cinema is actually really quite high.
Sure.
And it's generally a lot higher when I watch all these like smaller movies. It's generally way higher than what you just see on the internet, right? And what I think is interesting is that it's very clear when you see 50 or 100 small movies a year, not even that small, but, you know, just not super mainstream, how smart they are and how socially aware they are. And then you see the mainstream stuff, and it's like the mainstream stuff has clearly been engineered to go like, we need to remove the intelligence, because we know that you, the filmmaker, want to say this and this, you want to do this, and we just have to bring that down to make sure we please these people, these people, these people, these people, and these people.
They're always sort of appealing to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah,
because they want to get the wider audience, so they don't actually they take out the fucking soul of it.
But Luke was on Luke's show. He said because he was living in the wilderness on this massive TV show, and he said a number of times, you know, lying under the stars is so unbelievable. This is better than Netflix. It's better than the cinema. Being out here and just seeing the clarity of that sky is like enlightening and unbelievable. That was never going to make it to TV because they were never ever going to want to show the audience somebody saying, looking at the open sky is better than watching TV. Of course, they're not going to say that because they don't want the audience to turn off. But
Absolutely.
Yeah, but there are some films that will say it, and that's an
Absolutely.
interesting thing. Just not the mainstream. They're like, no, no. They need to believe in everything that we're saying. It's a strange phenomenon. I do. We should get off. I'm going to say one thing that I find quite interesting.
Go on.
Is if you go back to television in the 1950s.
Yeah.
And watch Alfred Hitchcock Presents as an example. It was, you know, the beginning of we're going to put advertisements into TV shows. And it was really common that the person who introduced the show, which was common then, like Rod Serling introduced The Twilight Zone, and even Roald Dahl introduced Tales of the Unexpected later on. And then
I remember Arnie did one of Tales of the Crypt. He was the guy who was introducing
Oh,
Arnold
really?
Schwarzenegger. It was amazing.
That's wicked.
Really cool.
But
Was cool in his pomp, you know. Really good.
I've never seen that.
I'll send it to you.
But Hitchcock did it. Hitchcock Presents, and it was really a standard thing that they would make fun of the advertisers, and they would say like, "You've just watched an extremely scary 20 minutes, but if you can hold out for one more minute, you're about to see something even scarier." A commercial, right? And then it would cut to commercial, and then it would come back to the show. But they would constantly kind of make it very clear, like, this is our art, and those are the sponsors.
Sure.
And now it's like you
don't.
never see that. They cannot belittle the sponsor under
Never.
any circumstance. The sponsor has to be elevated so much. Even on YouTube, you'll be watching a YouTube ad, and suddenly they're like, now, before I talk about today's hot topic, I just want to talk about this amazing thing from our sponsor. And they really try to make you think, unconvincingly most of the time, that they actually really care about this thing. And it's like...
I mean, I use this all the time, you know. It's just the best thing. It's changed my life. You know, I'm a really busy guy, right? And I really need to drink this protein shake because if I don't, guys, you know, with my busy schedule, you know, I just fall apart. So thank God. And you should try it too. And because if I want it, then you are definitely going to want it. Yeah,
it changed my life. It'll change your life too. These earbuds, I used to think that I was, you know, competent in life, and I realized I wasn't because these earbuds just fit so perfectly. It's quite an amazing thing how like they're just not allowed to say it. They're not allowed to say it. So anyway, that's just evidence of the mainstream censoring. And yeah, I suggest you go just watch some episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents from the 50s. Just one, it's amazing.
Watch They Live. If you haven't, just to go like full circle on this video, if you haven't seen They Live, one, where have you been? I mean, I could have said this to George not too long ago. Where have you been? Where were you? How have you not? How did you miss this? It's one of those things that you just missed. It happens. I've got certain films in my
just something I missed because I'd seen a lot of John Carpenter from when I was very young. Even he made like vampires, and I said everyone I really like vampires, and it was like, no, we don't. But I liked all of that stuff, and then I just literally didn't know They Live exists. I just had never seen it.
I like that. You didn't know that They lived.
Yeah.
And that, you know, so yeah, if you haven't seen that, unbelievable film.
If you haven't seen that, it's time to chew bubblegum and kick off.
If you watch films like, you know, you look at films like The Matrix and things like that, you know, they are essentially, they live in many ways in terms of, you know, the ideas behind it and what's going on. But, you know, I don't want to give it away because if you haven't seen it, I would just say when this video ends any second now, watch They Live.
Yeah, man.
Let us know what you think. Come back to us in the comments.
We'll leave it at that.
Feedback.
What do you guys think about all of this, and what do you think of They Live? And we will. Well,
They Live.
We do a different channel, and on that channel we talk about generally like we give dating advice, and we answer questions from people who write in and they say, oh, you know, I don't know what to do about my wife and my girlfriend and all that sort of stuff, and we have fun doing those kinds of videos, and we've talked about. We did a great episode on Saved by the Bell and things, which we actually put a lot of work into.
We did.
And and all that sort of jazz. But anyway, there's a whole lot more movie reviews that I'm certainly needing to do on this channel here, and I've got to come back and do Turtles Ninja Mutant Mayhem and all that sort of stuff.
Shoot.
Which I still haven't reviewed.
Got to check that out.
And all that jazz. But anyway, all right. I'll link you to other stuff below. Catch you guys later.
Bye, guys. Much love.
How do I turn off? I think we're stuck forever.
Bye.